Hello, everyone. Today I want to talk about a 1986 movie called Working Girls. This is a recent addition to the Criterion Collection, July 2021. It's a film directed by Lizzie Borden. This is not working girls going to the office. As you can tell by the cover photo, this is a story about prostitutes, and it's a kind of middle-class prostitution set in a kind of regular apartment building where the doorman is paid off, everything is set up through the telephone is paid off, connected to the police department, and it's paying them off. So the girls have a relatively safe environment to work in, and they don't have to worry about getting arrested. It's a day in a life kind of film. It's set in one day. The lead actress, Louise Smith, plays Molly. Molly is her name at the brothel. But the film opens as so many films open, with an alarm clock ringing. Molly is in bed with her girlfriend. She gets up, and they're raising a daughter. She gets up and gets the daughter up to go to school, and we see her in her dark room. She is a professional-looking setup and equipment, and obviously a professional photographer, so we think. Then she gets on her bike. She rides through the city of New York, down busy streets, and she ends up in an apartment building, goes in the door, and transforms herself into Molly. And these girls, there's two other girls. They sit in a very cramped apartment living room, and very claustrophobic. By the end of the movie, you probably said, "Let me out of this apartment building," which is the same reaction that Molly has by the end of her day, because she is finagled into working two shifts, and we get basically the nuts and bolts of what it's like, what this life is like. It was very, very much researched by the actresses and by the director and the screenwriter. They visited brothels. They got stories of experiences that the working girls had, the fantasies of the men that of their clients that they serviced, and so. And there's lots of nudity. So if you're offended by nudity, this is not a film to watch. But although it was in its time attacked from some people as being pornographic, it certainly is not in any sense of the word erotic. There's nothing erotic about the nudity in this film. It's more or less. It's very documentary, like I mentioned the research, but also the director's ambition and her style of presenting this story is for us to watch what it's like, as if we were a fly on the wall. And so all the men come with their fantasies. They service the fantasies. Louise is a graduate of Yale. She has 2 degrees. She's sort of like the college girl fantasy for some of the men to have, and some of the clients, especially the older clients, really like her intelligence and her ability to talk with them. But there's no male gaze to this film. This is a film seen from their point of view, the prostitute's point of view, and obviously it was done very well, very authentically, because Lizzie Borden says that many of the working girls who saw the film said, "Oh, that's exactly what my life is like." But halfway through, the madam comes by, and she's very lively, very pretentious. She's played by a New York stage actress named Ellen McElduff, and all the actresses in this film were brand new to films, but they were stage actresses in New York City. And she livens up. She's now the chit chat in between clients. We see what the girls do, the 3 girls do, and they look through magazines. They talk about their boyfriends, their ambitions in life, but then when the madam comes, the dynamics of the whole movie changes, because she's very demanding, and as in the supplements, we learned she actually takes 50% of the cut. So the girls are very creative, and there's half-hour rates, 1 hour rate, and they put down the half-hour rate when they're actually doing the 1 hour to sort of counterbalance the exchange that they have with the madam every night when they have to give up their earnings, 50% of their earnings. So again, the men in this film, it's really pathetic. I'm seeing this from the male point of view. These fantasies are so pathetic, but Lizzie Borden insists these were actual men, the experiences that the prostitutes told her of some of their experiences with men. So there's nothing that's really very sexy about it. This is just an economic transaction. There's a audio commentary on the supplements from 2007, and this is with Lizzie Borden, Judy Irola, who is the cinematographer, and Amanda Goodwin, who plays the younger prostitute who is going to college, attending college courses at night. And she's sort of the rebellious character. She's very funny, very good in the movie. She's very good in the commentaries too. And Judy Irola they shot it in 16 millimeter, $95,000 budget. They built the sets in Lizzie Borden's loft, but they were very small. They didn't have much room, and it's really fascinating to hear how you make a film in 16 millimeter with very limited space. Then there's a new conversation, recent conversation between Lizzie Borden and Betty Goodwin, who is also sort of a feminist filmmaker. I've never seen any of her movies, but a very interesting view of the film, especially in the post-Me Too era, how this working girls in the films that Betty Goodwin has made look today from the standpoint of that of the Me Too movement. There's also a new conversation with Amanda Goodwin, the actress Louise Smith, who plays Molly, a good Catholic girl who does all kinds of nudity in this film. Lizzie Borden says there's no way the film could have succeeded without the absolute commitment that Louise Smith had to the role she was playing. And then there's also the producer and the assistant director. Also very fascinating because again we're seeing it from a contemporary viewpoint. And then a really fascinating supplement where we have a conversation with 4 sex workers, working girls. They prefer the term sex worker, and they're all intelligent and different. One has only been in the sex business for about 5 years. One is a trans sex worker. One is about a middle-aged sex worker who has been in it maybe 20, 25 years. And then we have a woman who's been in it her whole working life, about 40 years. And they like the term. They discussed the term. What should we call sex workers? A lot of the sex workers didn't like the term because they think it means full service, whereas the sex worker is sort of an umbrella label now, from full service down to a stripper or a phone sex worker, or now I guess it's a cam sex worker. Also very interesting and these are 4 women that are very much into the organization of kind of a unionizing of sex workers, and their ambition is to decriminalize prostitution or sex work in general, rather than legalize, because with legalization you get government control, which is something they're adamantly opposed to. Then we get a booklet, and this is the booklet, and Working Girls, and that's Louise Smith on the back cover. And it includes an essay by So Mayer, and this is very much a feminist point of view, ideological point of view. I find this, I'm not an ideological type person, but I'm always fascinated by people who are very much into adopting and establishing and discussing, articulating ideologies. I don't always understand it too well, but I nevertheless can learn something from it. And then there's also a interview with Lizzie Borden, and this is from 1987. So it's fairly recent from the time that the movie was made. It's with a man, Scott McDonald, so we get they really trade perspectives on what the film would mean to a man, what it means to a woman, how you would view it, and again from 1987. And the interview closes with a question that McDonald asks Lizzie Borden: "What do you hope audiences take from Working Girl?" And she replies, "I would like an audience to leave the film thinking about working, labor in general. What's the trade-off? 40 hours of a job you might hate, or a few hours being paid for sex? Which takes the greater toll?" I think that's a very interesting question from my own personal perspective. I would differentiate between the toll it takes on a mind and the toll it takes on a body, as far as penetration and the physical toll. It would seem to me to be far more harmful than the mental toll of having a job. And of course, you're also assuming that everybody who has a 40-hour week hates their job, and I'm sure there's satisfactions in it. But it's an interesting question of the economics of work itself. So that'll about wrap it up. This is, of course, a film that's a very difficult. I only purchased this because I made this resolve that I would watch all the movies that Criterion released in the second half of 2021, and this was in July, so it is the second half. It's probably a movie I would not have bought or seen, but nevertheless, I really enjoyed the different points of view that normally I avoid. Subjects I avoid. Prostitution to me is a rather depressing subject, but it exists. It's always existed, and this is certainly an interesting take on it. Okay, that'll about wrap up this video, and I thank everybody who listened to me as always. I appreciate it, and take care. We'll catch you next time.